Good morning, Vanessa. This is our office hours for the week, and I believe you had a question for me. You said, since school's been out, my house has become so cluttered, it's hard to get anything done. I've kept my main priorities in the forefront with my sanity, and my house is hanging on by a thread and now affecting my focus on true priorities. So let's talk about that. First, I want you to realize that you're not alone, girl. You are not the only one to feel this way. You have such valid feelings when it comes to trying to juggle all the things. There probably isn't an entrepreneur out there who has figured it all out, especially when they're first getting started, right? So I thought I could bring you some practical tips today, some that I have learned through the years. I've done this before parenthood, and I'm still, going strong since parenthood. And I feel like I definitely have seasons. So setting expectations is really important, for yourself, but also with your family. And I think setting realistic expectations to let go of perfectionism is one of the first steps to really figuring out what system is going to work for you. Sometimes you have to remind yourself that a clean enough house is okay. We're not going to always live in the Pinterest perfect, Instagram perfect home. That is just not reality, especially when we have little kids running around. And summer is going to be harder for you and me and other moms than it will be during the school year, because we are left with much less free time than normal, right? I recommend starting small. Next, involve the family. Talk to the family and talk about what reality is. Things have shifted a little bit. We call ourselves Team 𝐊𝐿𝐿𝐿. Okay. We are a team as a family. And by creating a team environment, everybody recognizes that they all have a role to play. And it kind of gives everybody a sense of responsibility. And so everyone knows that they've all got to pitch in on some level. So setting realistic expectations or age appropriate chores can also be very helpful. How are you and how have you involved your children already when it comes to chores? If you haven't already, this might be just that prodding from the spirit that it's time to go ahead and get them more involved and give them a little bit more responsibility. For example, picking up their toys after they've played, right? Just teaching decluttering right after a playtime is helpful for the whole family, and teach them why, because it makes a path for you to walk through without tripping on your way to the desk, the next day when they're at softball practice. Or a decluttered house declutters your mind and your spirit, and it allows you to work better. Like, I have to really talk to Matt and Rhett about that on a regular basis, because they're boys and they don't think like me, and their hearts and their spirit don't understand the way that I operate. So age appropriate chores by involving the whole family, but start small, like focusing maybe on one area at a time and breaking those tasks up. I can tell you all day long what's worked for me, and I can give you some ideas. You're ultimately going to have to figure out what works for you and your personality and your household, right? And the people that are involved. But one of the things that helps me the most is that once or twice a day, I stop and I just do a walk through the house for decluttering and just pick up those random things that are still out of place that bug me. It might be a 10 to 20 minute time period that I'm doing that, but it ultimately makes a big impact on the way that I feel and the way that my house looks. I try to do that after I've already made Rhett do it. I give him the responsibility that he has to go through and do it with all of his stuff. He's 9 going on 10, and I can promise you he's still going to intentionally skip most of the things. And I say intentionally, it's very possible he isn't noticing, because that's not where his attention lies. So he could be missing things not on purpose, but because that's not how his mind works yet. But I'm really trying to teach him this summer, especially, that attention to detail matters and why it matters. I I've tripped on a few things recently and I can't afford a sprained or a broken ankle. Let's keep mom alive here. You know, that is definitely one of my top tips. So if you're dropping the kids off for softball practice and then going back home, do that trip through the house and just fill your arms up, but intentionally put the things where they belong rather than just moving them. Because if you catch yourself just shuffling things from one place to another without them having a place, then I don't feel like you're going to feel much better about it. Not at least in the long term. Systems and tools that work for you, bins, labels, stuff like that. If you can get things in order, routines, maybe doing specific tasks on specific days might be helpful, where you're like, Tuesday is my laundry day. Wednesdays are bathrooms. On Thursdays, I'm going to change the sheets. But the little chores that your kids can help with on a regular basis, I suggest putting them on a daily little chore list. You know, like you're going to help set the table every day and you're going to help clean the dishwasher out every day and reload it, not letting them put dishes in the sink. If y'all can keep an empty dishwasher, meaning from clean dishes, as soon as it's done cleaning and drying, putting those dishes away, then they have a place to put their dirty dishes, and creating those habits where you're like, nope, you're finished with that. Don't set it in the sink, because an empty sink feels so much better than a pile of dirty dishes. You know what I mean? So, you know, just knowing those things, but also just kind of making a deal with the family. Like, this is how things need to go for our household to run smoothly. And then, you know, I just encourage you to make sure that you're shifting your mind, that now you've got something new coming into your life, and giving yourself grace that it's not going to all run as smooth as it did before. And it's going to take time to get into a new routine, and just recognizing progress over perfection, right? Celebrate the small win and be kind to yourself. If things don't go as planned, tomorrow is a new day and we just start over. I think that I've talked about this with you guys. One of the strategies that works really well for me when I'm having an off day mentally, and sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's just like chaos, right? Whatever. But it's just to have a reset. Obviously, I'm not carrying around a Staples reset button, but I just stopping and resetting. And I learned this with diet, if I'm honest. If I got off of a meal plan or I cheated, I would sabotage myself and let it completely ruin me. And I would quit immediately. One little cheat and I would quit the whole thing. But learning how to just say, okay, it happened. Just pick up where you left off and reset. Like, just a mental reset will really change perspective and your circumstances.
Yeah.
Because if you have the right perspective that that's already happened and I can't change it, so why am I focused on it? Let's just do the right thing right now. Right here in this moment, let's just make the right choice for what works for me in this time, in this moment, and celebrate the little wins. I think also looking at housework as self-care as opposed to chores can be helpful, because it can take the pressure off of you from feeling like, oh, I've got this long list of things to do. But ultimately, when we do them and we complete those tasks at home, we really do feel better. It does put us in a better situation. And so we have to kind of look at the outcome versus the process.
Yeah.
I can recommend 2 books that I really, really love. They're by the same author. I worked through one of her books with small group like 2.5 years ago, maybe. Her name is Emily Lay. So she has one book that's really about simplicity, and that's called When Less Becomes More. And she gets into different techniques for simplifying your life and your home, decluttering, but also a lot of mental declutter, like when it comes to social media or technology, the noise that we allow into our brain, all those things. How rest can look like less frenzy and more soulful rest, less fear, more community, less great and more good parenting because we're all wanting to be like the best parents, right? And we have some mentor or idol or person in mind that we are trying to emulate when it comes to parenting, because we do this. It's the same with entrepreneurship. We have this person who's gone before us and we might think, oh, they've got it all figured out, I want to be like them. And so then we're just striving for the perfectionism that we see out of them, as opposed to the small steps that it took them to get to where they are. And they're still not in a perfect place. It's just a place of progress. Thinking of parenting that way is just as important. We want more quality time versus just striving for perfectionism, because perfectionism is like the killer of connection.
Yeah.
Anyway, When Less Becomes More by Emily Ley. And then her next book is another mindset book, but it is Grace, Not Perfection. And this is where she helps you dive deep into recognizing how to give yourself grace, how to give your people grace, and then how to have grace in your calling and emulate grace. So those are two really good books. And her books are like workbooks too.
I like that.
I really like too. Yeah. Because then it's not just like reading someone else's story. It's how to make it practical for yourself. I hope that those are encouraging words and tips and whatnot. But do you have any follow-up questions?
Well, I think, yeah, because I have over the past year, like done a lot of like kind of system work, and I knew that it would be a shift into the summer, and I knew that it would be hard, and I keep thinking like, oh, well, next week's going to be different because, and then, that has its own kind of pop-up stuff that happens, so I think like it does, I just need to center my mind around this is a unique time. I am trying to do a lot. I am biting off a lot, but, I feel like God is the one who put everything that I have going on in my life at this time. Like he didn't choose it before school ended, so I'm like, okay, so you're trying to teach me something about hard, and not depending on my own strength and not
he might be
trying to do things the way that I normally do.
Yeah, he might be seasoning you, right? Like preparing you versus like trying to teach you. But sometimes we have to go through the hard, right? So that we're prepared for something harder, or also so that we could help someone else go through it, right? I mean, because without walking a certain path, we don't have the experience or the knowledge, and maybe we just won't be able to help the person who comes after us.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful to remember that that person who comes after us might in fact be our children. We're always looking, for me as an entrepreneur, and especially like a coach who's really passionate about helping other women, I tend to focus a lot on what can I learn so that I can help the next woman. But I have to remind myself my ultimate coaching opportunity is with my son and to teach him. And obviously, if I haven't been through it, I can't help him. And so being really open and honest with him and recognizing the things that I'm going through are potentially to help prepare him for something harder. And unfortunately, the way our world is going, our kids are not going to be living an easier life than we're living.
Yeah.
And that's the reality that we need to recognize, and not to let it steal our joy, but to be encouraged to prepare them, to prepare with the tools and the mindset and the work ethic.
Yeah.
I believe that your mindset is in the right place. Just don't allow yourself to slip down into the place of overwhelm. Give yourself the grace to say, okay, I need to stop so that this doesn't happen week after week. I need to go ahead and take the time to figure out what I can do to make that shift happen, right? So that you can connect some dots. If you want to get into specific things that feel really hard for you, I'm more than happy to talk through like specifics if this has been too general.
Well, because like I have this program, I just started a health program, and that I would have pushed off to the fall, but I was like, well, with my adrenal fatigue and my lack of energy, I feel like God presented this opportunity, because he knew like, okay, well, you've got to be more strategic in your health, and you've got to actually find answers for why your body is doing this and let your body heal so that you have energy to carry out everything that he's teeing up. Because I know David today, was like, well, you do have a lot going on, and I was like, I know.
He thinks you don't? Is that what
he said, you do have a lot going on.
Okay.
Because like last night was ugly, like, because I just had it with the house and my girls not picking up and, not listening to me. And they're not listening to me because, I mean, one, just being a kid. And then two, like, I will say something and then I'm gone to the next thing, gone to the next thing, gone to the next thing. They haven't done the first thing that I asked them to do that they're perfectly capable of doing, so I see that, like, okay, well, I've got to simplify. And in the meantime, and our dog has been sick. And so I've been driving him to and from Marietta, like trying to get him better and settled.
Yeah.
And all these camps my girls are doing, so like lots of really good things. I'm so thankful that I have everything that's going on because everything is good, but I was listening like to podcasts, like whenever I could, like in the car, because that's what I really enjoy. But then it hit me. I was like, well, maybe yesterday, like, because the house has always been cluttery because since the girls were toddlers, I was like, you know what? Pinterest house can wait. Like I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. And they're not gonna remember, they're not gonna care, but what they're gonna care about is like if they felt creative in their house, if they felt at home, if they felt comforted, secure, safe, all of those things. They're not going to care about it being orderly. There does need to be some, but so I mean, our house stays pretty chaotic, but at least I can still like do what I need to do. But it had gotten to the point where I was like, I don't even have counter space to cook a healthy meal today, and so it hit me like this morning. I felt like the Holy Spirit was really, when I normally like plug my phone and listen to a podcast while I'm taking them here and there, was really, just like, no, just silent. You need silence. Like you're getting overstimulated, you're getting too many thoughts, and granted they're good thoughts, but just too many at one point. Like the few things that he has called me to do this summer, just focus on those. And podcasts are great, but usually they get me all excited about all sorts of other good ideas of things I should be doing, things I could do, and there's no guilt or shame. But then, with the stuff that I don't even have time to manage now, gets neglected, and then that wears me out.
Yeah. Well, I can relate again. And I think it's really good that you've recognized that sometimes you can overstimulate yourself and how to say, okay, it's time to take a break. Let's rest in the knowledge that I already have. I had to do the same about 6 months ago. I had to really stop with my books because I was wanting to move faster than my time allowed, right? Faster than I could implement ideas. It is really important to recognize what our limits are and to be okay with that. So if podcasts are still really encouraging for you, I really recommend, honestly, that you check out Maddie's that you heard me mention to Lindsay the other day, and I can send it to you. But her podcast really isn't one that's going to it's not an entrepreneurial podcast. It is about staying true to yourself. And so it's really more content that is very similar to what we're going through in this divine discovery. It's about knowing God, finding freedom, finding your purpose and following that, but also just biblical truths. And so it's really a good one that is going to be encouraging and be full of reminders. It may even call your spirit out on some truths that you're not ready to recognize or whatnot. But anyway, I'll send you a link to that podcast, and maybe just try. It might be that you need to just shift like what you're listening to instead of obviously listen to the Holy Spirit. If he tells you to be still and to be quiet, I encourage you to do that. If podcasts are good, like if you like them and there may be a time where you can pop those AirPods in and walk around the house and do that cleanup and listen for 20 minutes, doing that, and it helps take the focus off like the stress of cleaning up. Then
my frustration.
And your
I don't
frustration.
mind cleaning up, but I think it's frustrating.
And so learn how to like distract your thoughts and take the thoughts off of the frustration and focus on something else. So I'll send you that podcast and I'll send you a link to these books that I mentioned. Just let me know if they're helpful and if there's anything else I can do to support you in this area. I know you've got to run get your girls. I think you've got this. I think that you're very self-aware, which I love and appreciate so much because there's a lot of people who aren't.
Just a second, Paul.
And I think having that self-awareness is really important to your future success, and just recognizing those things and, trying to pick up the right tools right away and fix things so that you can keep moving forward versus letting them slow you down and hold you back.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffanie.
You're
welcome.
It was
really helpful.
I'm glad.
I was spiraling.
No, don't spiral, and just reach out if you
Thank
need somebody to
you.
help you. Don't
Yes.
spiral. You've got this.
Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany.
Okay. Have a
I
good day.
appreciate
Tell
you.
the girls hello.
You too.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.